Hello again. Um, just continuing the story from where we left off yesterday. Um, hope the previous one, the beginning, was decent. The audio wasn't the best. I apologize for that. The microphone I'm using isn't the best, and well, I'm not really that well of like audio speaking, so but I hope it was decently listenable. Um, and yeah, so I hope you enjoy. Thank you if you're watching. And yeah, enjoy. So we left off yesterday when the I will be referring to him as the Dead King until he gets an actual name for now, just so there's actual, so it's a lot easier to follow. In the story, that is like his title. He will get a name soon, don't worry. But so if you hear me refer to the Dead King, I'm talking about the first king. If you remember, I'll do a little recap real quick. The first king and the second king fought, and the first king died, but he evolved past death and kind of made a copy of himself via mitosis in a way, and his copy clone escaped and went from planet to planet and eventually found Earth. And that's pretty much where we now are at in this section. And pretty much that's that's pretty much the important parts. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember, but um, anything else, if it's important or relevant, I'll bring it up again. I don't have the best memory, so if I forget something or something is like questions, just leave a comment or ask or something. And there's probably an answer for it, but for the most part, yeah, that's all the important parts. So if you hear me refer to the dead king, that's just the clone of the first king, but he's not really a clone because he's not the same. He's the same, but I don't know. It's confusing in that way. But um, so we left off when Dead King discovered Earth, and so he um okay, yep. Okay, sorry, I just there we go. So back to the into back into the story. Um, the Dead King discovers Earth. He hasn't really seen a planet like this before. Most of them are just kind of water and rock, but this one seems to be full of lush green plains and plentiful oceans and seemingly has a bunch of life on it. And so he goes to check it out, but when he gets to Earth, he feels a overbearing presence, like somebody's constantly watching him and just feels uneasy. And well, he doesn't like this because well, he doesn't like just feeling like he's being watched like most people. But then he continues just exploring, going through the jungles, going through the oceans, the deserts, and eventually stumbles upon a couple huts and some random looking creatures who are humans, to clarify, but they're seeming to be they're looks like they're dressed in just fur, but they're not actually that hairy. They're just covered in fur, and they're just kind of walking around talking and not really doing anything with a bunch of like weird looking tent things. And so he just thinks to himself that he probably shouldn't interact with this immediately, as there's obviously something going on, because well, he feels like he's being watched and the overbearing presence, and something just feels off. So he just kind of watches these creatures and just observes them, and nothing really out of the ordinary happens. They just kind of just talk and then just go into the huts at night, and then just in the morning they come out, and then that's it, and they just talk more. So there's not too much going on, and he decides that well, the best way to kind of figure this out is to actually go confront these creatures, and the best way that he can think of is simply just looking like one. And he is evolved enough to where he can sort of not shapeshift but alter his appearance and form to look like one of these creatures. And so he just looks like a regular old human and just finds some more of that fur thing stuff hanging around and just covers himself in that like everybody else. And so he just kind of walks into the town looking area because he doesn't really know what's going on. He hasn't really seen much like this before. And so he asks the question just like everybody else, just how was your day? And well, the person he asks responds, well, it's going good. How's your day going? And he says that and the dead king responds that it's going all right. I mean, nothing really too out of the ordinary, but it's just odd that all this is happening and what is going on. And so he just decides to continue asking questions and living amongst these people. And so he does. He just kind of hangs out, talks in the morning, sleeps at night. He doesn't sleep at night because he doesn't need to, but he just lays there with the rest of them on the floor with his eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. And so eventually he um, notices seeing weird things around at night because since he doesn't need to sleep, he sometimes will just leave and kind of walk around and just, I don't know, explore at night, I guess. And however, he sees more of these creatures, these people, but they're flying around in the air, just floating. They don't really seem to have any means of flying. They're just a couple feet off the ground, seemingly dressed in what looks to be light itself in pure gold. And they don't really seem to have any emotion on their face. They're just kind of blankly looking off into the distance. And, well, the dead king hides because, well, he doesn't know what these things are, but they don't really seem to bother him, even if they do notice him. And so he just kind of sees them here and there at night, and they don't bother each other, they don't interact, and so eventually these seemingly like elevated beings, literally and figuratively, he he starts to see them during the day, and nobody really seems to be paying too much attention. The flying beings don't really seem to be doing anything, and so he just continues like nothing it's been like, and things just continue as normal. Nothing out of the ordinary is going on. But eventually, he just all of a sudden feels compelled to follow everybody else to the middle of this town, and he goes to the middle with everybody else. He doesn't really know why he wanted to go here, but he did. And then all of a sudden, three of these elevated beings, it looks like, literally, uh, sorry, three of them seemingly come out of the sun, like the sun's light itself. They just descend from it, and then they are in a line in front of them, just a couple feet off of the ground, looking at them. And then all of a sudden, he hears a voice saying that, oh, sorry. Wow. And he hears a voice in his head saying that these are his people and you are my people, and that the people that you see before you are his angels and are to not be disturbed. And then these angels, now that they have a name and identification, these angels seemingly just fly back into the light, and everybody just walks off and continues talking as if nothing happened. And he is very confused because, well, what was that voice in his head telling him those things? And what's with the angels, seemingly, now that they have a name? And so he kind of now is looking for answers instead of just now just being like everybody else. He'll ask a couple weird questions, well, seemingly weird to everybody else, like, hey, what do you know about the angels? Or, hey, do you know where those angels are from? Or just, but nobody really has an answer. And when he mentions them, they just kind of like look a little puzzled at him and say they don't know and just continue to ask their random questions. And so he eventually decides to build up the courage to interact with one of these angels. Of course, he doesn't really want to because, well, he was specifically told by that voice in his head to not disturb these angels. But what else is he going to do? He wants answers, and, well, if something happens, he's ready to fight whatever it is. He's fought in battles, he's fought people before. It's nothing new. He's been to dozens of planets that have had strong people and all these powerful warriors, and he fought them without any struggle. So what's the worst that can happen? Foreshadowing, if it wasn't obvious. But anyway, back to it. Um, and so he goes up to one of these angels and asks, "Well, what is the angel's purpose? What are they doing? Are they just like, are they looking? Are they like a reporter? Are they like a information person? Or what's going on with the angels?" And the angel just stares at him for a bit and then asks him, "What is your purpose for asking me this question?" And so the dead king responds simply just, "I would like an answer to a question I have." And the angel says, "Okay, what would you like to know?" And the dead king asks this question again, "What is your purpose for being here?" And the angel says, "Just watching, observing." And the angel just stares at him. The dead king hasn't really had his questions answered. Now he just has a specific objective that these angels have. And so he decides, okay then, well, can I ask another question? And before he can even finish that sentence, the angel seemingly just disappears. There's no puff of smoke, there's no bright light, just it's there, and now it's not. And he is very startled by this because, well, he doesn't know anything that could be that fast by just disappearing in front of him. So what could it be? Was it so fast that it just can't be observed? Was it teleported? Was he hallucinating? He doesn't know what's going on, and so he just kind of goes back and then asks even more questions to the people because, well, what else is he gonna do? And so he just asks more questions. Do you guys know where the angels are from? What are the angels doing? Do they like have a magical machine that allows them to fly like that? And all the people are just, again, stare at him, confused, squint their eyes, shrug their shoulders. I don't know. And so, seeing that there's no help, he decides that, well, he's going to have to ask the angels directly again. And so he finds another one of these angels just wandering around, observing, watching, as the other angel said. And so then he asks the question to the other angel, "What is your purpose for being here?" And, well, he gets the exact same result as he did before. The angel asks why he's asking this question. He says that he wants to know, and the angel says that he's just watching and observing. And then he disappears without a trace. And so now he's more like frustrated than anything because, well, seemingly that nobody cares, and the only other sentient life seems to be too stupid to understand is they don't seem to know anything and don't do anything. But a little bit after this, all of a sudden the people start doing stuff. They start grabbing rocks, banging it against other rocks, grabbing sticks and rubbing them together and start making things. They make fire, they make flint, they make wood, they start doing stuff and start building, and seemingly over the course of a day they went from living in like wood huts and like sleeping on the dirt. Now they're sleeping in proper beds in brick housing with giant tall skyscrapers with supermarkets and all these amazing things. And so he is very, very, very confused. because he asked a couple questions, and now all of a sudden there is now an actual society, an actual life, and these creatures, these people, now seem to have actual intelligence, as some of them can barely even do 1+1, and some others can figure out how to get into space in the blink of an eye. So obviously something is going on that's unusual, because, well, to all the planets he's been to and all the societies he's seen, something like this has never happened before. So what could it be? What's going on? And so he decides that, well, what is the best way to get an answer? Seemingly from the angels again. And so he finds the third angel that he hasn't spoken to yet, and he finds him just watching, observing, not really doing anything. And so the dead king asks him once again, what are your guys' reason for being here? What are you guys doing? And the angel doesn't ask the same question again. He says that they're just looking out and watching because God can't directly view what his creations are doing. And, well, the dead king is confused. What do you mean that? Because he doesn't really know of a God. He knows of worship and belief, but it's pretty much just he'll see somebody just ask for help seemingly to the sky and then just continue on with their day. And when it's been explained to him that, oh, these people believe this is how all of this happened, he goes, oh, okay, and doesn't really think much of it. But now he's being told that this entity, this being, God, exists, and he has other beings watching his own creations because he cannot see them directly. And so he pretty much... Actually, no, he does. He just runs away. Because, well, seemingly this all-powerful being that he never really thought of as anything more than just a belief is real. He cannot see his own creations. And the creations that he knows of can do miracles, seemingly. Well then, it looks like the Dead King has a new goal, a new mission. Get to God and figure out what's going on. And he, the Dead King, is not the smartest, technically, in the sense of thinking. He is very intelligent, but it's mainly just he can figure out how to get to his goal, but he doesn't really think much past that. And so he thinks, well, what is the best way I can get to God? The angels seem pretty close to God, so what if I just get to God through the angels? And he thinks on this, and, well, there doesn't really seem to be a way of becoming an angel, seeing as God created all of the other beings, so being able to become an angel himself seems not possible. So then, well, what is the next closest thing to become an angel than be an angel? And so he comes up with the plan of eliminating one of the angels and taking its place, and then using that fact that he is now pretending to be one of God's angels to get to God and ask him all of the questions that he has and just figure out and understand. So that's what he does. After a little bit, he figures out kind of what is the best way to like see an angel one-on-one, and so that's what he does. He eventually goes to a church, seemingly that's what they're called, and he goes to one, and he goes to the front. He stands before the cross, gets on his knees, and asks if he can have an angel speak to him directly, as he has questions that can only be answered by an angel. and nothing happens, and he continues on with his day thinking that it didn't work. But then an angel seemingly rounds the corner and says, "You would like to speak to me?" And the dead king says, "Yes, I would love to talk to you. Can we talk in private?" And just points to a random building. Most of the buildings are empty, but he he points to the nearest empty building. The angel says, "All right, I will follow you." The dead king and the angel go into this empty building, and the angel asks, "What do you need? What can I help you with?" And the dead king asks, "How can I get closer to God?" And the angel says, "Well, you can pray, you can believe, and you can sacrifice." And the dead king has heard that before because many other people have, well, asked that same question. How can I get closer to God and prove my faith? And well, the angels always say the same thing. And so the dead king realizes that he's going to have to go with plan B, which was the first one, eliminate the angel and take its place. And so the dead king goes closer and closer and closer. The angel, not really knowing, is just standing there watching him get closer and closer. And how do I say this YouTube friendly? The dead king hugs the angel with his hands really tightly just below his head area, and just gives him a really tight hug. Some might call this a breathtaking hug. Yeah. But wow. And well, after the dead king does it, the angel slowly just descends from the air, lands on his feet, and the gold light that the angel is dressed in, slowly dims and dims until he just is seemingly now just a regular person, just naked, but he just then collapses to the ground. He never made a noise, he never made a face, he never did anything. He simply let it happen, and well, okay then. The dead king has killed God's angel, one of God's angels. Well, I guess just now it's just kind of time to pretend to be, and this is to be an angel, and then, well, confront God and ask him questions and try to understand. Okay then. And so the dead king then just kind of leaves the building, and the second he steps out of the building, he now is seemingly walking on clouds. What once was sidewalk, is now seemingly fluffy, elegant, soft clouds. And so then, well, okay then, this is weird, but he feels a sense of calm and knowingness, and he looks in front of him and he sees a bright light right before him, and he sees the two other angels on either side, just being as they normally are, floating a couple feet off of the ground, not really any emotion on their face, dressed in bright gold light beams. And he just kind of is, the dead king is just standing there, staring into this light that doesn't really seem to hurt his eyes by staring at, unlike staring at anything else bright. And then someone steps out of this light, and the dead king looking at this man doesn't really know him, but he feels like he remembers him. It's a feeling of deja vu, I guess, as it's called. He just feels like he knows this person, but has only really seen him in the dreams, never properly visualized him or seen him walking on the street. And so the dead king asks, "Are you God?" And the man responds, "Yes, and you are not one of my creations." And the dead king says, "Yes, I am not one of your creations, but I killed one of your creations, one of your angels. Is that why you have brought me here?" And God says, yes, you have disturbed one of my angels. And so the dead king asks, well, will there be punishment? And God says, I have a special place just for you. And before the dead king can even process this or hear the words at this point, or hear the words even, seemingly, he's now in some sort of box surrounded by reds, by a stone-like structure that is really red and seemingly just simple metal bars, looking like a common jail cell that he's seen plenty of times before. And so he kind of thinks to himself, oh, he's just locked me away. I've been put in jail many a times. And so he walks in front of the bars, grabs them, and they don't budge. They don't move at all. Seemingly, they are immovable, indestructible. He can't do anything. And keep in mind, the dead king is not a normal king or being. He can lift mountains like paper. He can destroy cities just by jumping. And so not being able to bend simple metal bars seems impossible. And so then he punches the wall. Nothing. In fact, it hurts his hand a little bit. And so he punches the ceiling, the floor, the wall, and he just cannot do anything. And, well, realizing this, he notices something on the other side of the bars, outside of his box, and he realizes that it is something. It's a creature. It looks weird. It looks like it has claws. It's surprisingly short and looks kind of bluish, weirdly. But it's seemingly not facing him. It has its back to the dead king, and so the dead king now is wondering, well, okay, what do I do now? And eventually, after just walking around in his box, the creature turns around and walks closer to the bars. And the creature just wasn't. The dead king couldn't even ask a question, couldn't even think of a question to ask. But then the creature spoke and said, my job here is to keep you here. My name is Lucifer. My name means law. I am here to keep you here. I am the law. And he turns around and he walks back and just disappears into the darkness, dust that's just on the other side of the metal bars. And the dead king is very, 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 very confused. This creature who called himself Lucifer says that he is the law, and his job as the law is to keep him in this box. Okay then. Well, what do I do now? There is seemingly no way to get out. I can't fit through the bars. I can't break through the walls, the ceiling, or the floor. I can't bend the bars. I can't do anything. Okay then. He just lays on the floor and just kind of stares up at the ceiling of his box. There's not too much else to do, and so he waits and waits, and currently time doesn't really matter that much in the story, so whether I say like, oh yeah, a week later or 5 billion years later, it doesn't really make a difference. It's just he waits, the dead king, he waits in his box, trapped in his box, and eventually Lucifer, who has deemed himself that name, walks before the bars and asks why he is in this box. Why Lucifer asks the dead king, why are you here? What did you do? And the dead king says, I killed one of God's angels. And Lucifer asks, which one? And the dead king doesn't really know what to say, as to him they all kind of looked the same. And so Lucifer asks, well, which one did you kill? And the dead king doesn't know what to say, and that's what he says. He says, I don't know, they all looked the same. And Lucifer says, oh, right, I forgot. Let me check. And then he walks off into the distance, into the dust. And the dead king is very, very, very confused. And so the dead king just kind of waits and waits. And eventually, Lucifer, he comes back. He returns. And he walks back and says, you killed the angel that was named Axel. And so for some reason, Lucifer asks, is that your name? Is that why you killed him? He had your name. And, well, the dead king said, yeah, that's my name. Because the dead king, up until this point, didn't really have a name. He didn't really have a name or a title. He just kind of existed. He had names, but it was pretty much just he'd show up on a planet, someone would ask for his name, and he'd just come up with something. But now he's been given a name, seemingly, and, well, maybe he can somehow use the fact that this creature, Lucifer, might maybe, like, be able to help him or something, help him, like, leave or escape or something. And so then Lucifer says, oh, but why would you kill him just because you guys have the same name? And, well, Axel, now, as I'll be referring to him, the dead king, now has a name, and it is Axel. There is no, like, relevance to his name being Axel. It's literally just, I'm not that good with names, and so it's the only name I could come up with that wasn't just, like, a generic name. Anyway, back to the story. So, Axel now is puzzled because, well, what can he say? If he agrees with it, then that's just kind of it, but so... And Axel says, no, that is not why I killed him. It is not because we have the same name. I wanted to get closer to God, and since I shared a name with an angel, I decided to kill that angel and then take his place and get answers and get information from God because I wanted to understand what was going on. And Lucifer stares at Axel and says, oh, okay, well, do you have any questions that I could answer? And Axel says, no. Lucifer says, all right, and walks off. Okay, then. Well, that was the end of that. The dead king now has a name, Axel. And so Axel waits in his box and waits for seemingly endless amounts of time. And so then, one day, Lucifer walks over to Axel's cell. However, there's somebody else with him, a seemingly identical version of Lucifer. However, it looks more female. It looks like Lucifer, but more female, like most females. And Axel asks, who is this? Who's that with you? And Lucifer says, this is my wife. And, well, Axel asks, well, why do you have a wife? When did you get one? And Lucifer answers his question that when he was watching Earth just exist, he saw how there was other people with wives and families and whatnot, and, well, Lucifer wanted one, and so he asked God if he could have a wife, and God said, okay, you can have one, and gave him a wife. And so Lucifer then continues walking along, his wife right behind him, and then Axel and Lucifer's wife look at each other, and then she follows Lucifer, and they walk off and disappear as usual. And so Axel just goes back to whatever he's doing, climbing the walls, getting on the ceiling, doing push-ups, just trying to escape, just doing whatever. And And eventually, Lucifer's wife, all by herself, goes up to the bars and asks how Axel is doing. And Axel says that he's been better, but he's doing all right, he guesses, and then asks her how is she doing. She says that she's doing pretty well, and says if he would like food and drink. Axel says that no, he doesn't. That he doesn't need food or drink. He doesn't need to eat, drink, or sleep. And she just seems she's surprised. And oh well, I brought you food and drink anyway. And then leaves it for him. And he just kind of stares at it and stares at her. And then she says that she hopes he feels better and likes the food. And she walks off and disappears. And he just kind of puzzled. Eventually, tries the food and tries the water, and it's not the best, not the worst. It's edible, but and so he eats it and drinks it. He doesn't need to, but it's there. Why not? And so some more time passes, and Lucifer's wife then comes back and asks him how he's doing, and Axel says he's doing fine. Nothing really changed much between now and then. And she says that, well, maybe this will make you feel better. More food, and brings out more food and drink. And he says thank you. She says you're welcome. She walks off, and he just enjoys his food. And then she comes back again. And I think possibly some people might know where this is going. So it's pretty much just rinse and repeat. She comes back, food and drink, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you? It's just that back and forth for a while. But eventually, Lucifer's wife comes over and asks, well, why is he in this box? And so Axel tells her that he killed one of God's angels. And Lucifer's wife says, why can't he just make another one and like fling you off into space and then like nothing ever happened? Axel doesn't know. He doesn't know. He says, I don't know. And so she just kind of seems puzzled, thinks on it for a second, and just kind of goes, well, what if you got out of your box? What if you left? He says, I don't know. Maybe you could like show me around and like we can hang out more. And maybe I'll do better outside of the box. And Lucifer's wife says that she can't really let him outside of the box, as Lucifer himself said not to, and that Lucifer's entire purpose for now being there is to keep him in his box. And so Lucifer's wife says that sadly she can't let him out of the box. And Axel says, oh, what a shame. We could spend more time together, hang out, we can have massive feasts, and we can finally talk face to face without bars in front of us, between us. And she says, oh, what a shame, and walks off. And Axel, realizing, wait a minute, I could possibly use her to help me escape. Alrighty then, we have another plan. And so, she comes back again, asks him how he's doing, food and drink, blah blah blah, as usual. And he just kind of keeps drilling in the fact of, oh, it'd be so nice if he could actually speak to her face to face, if how nice it would be outside of the box. And so then she eventually asks him, well, what if I only let you out for like a couple minutes, a minute or two? Well, that couldn't be that big of a deal. There could be an harm in that. And he says, I'm not playing. I won't do anything. I just am tired of being in this box. And so she says, okay, I'll let you out. And then walks away. And the bars slowly descend into the ground. And now they're gone. There are no bars in front of him. And then she appears from the mist again. And he steps out. walks past the dust and sees that, well, there's nothing much going on. The floor is just more red sand as it was when he was in his box. The walls are the same color, and it's seemingly just a bigger box. There's nothing else going on. He looks over and he sees a hole in one side of the wall, and she says that that's how Lucifer watches Earth. He just goes through there and then just watches Earth, and he says, "Oh, okay. Well, how could I well, can you leave through there?" Or and she says, "No, you have no. The exit and how you leave is through there," and points to the complete opposite side of of the room of the box, and well, she points to a giant hole that seemingly leads that looks like it even leads to the outside. Okay then. Well then, could I leave? I won't do anything. She says that no, he shouldn't, and that Lucifer would not want that, and just no, not to do that. And he says, okay, well, can we just walk around, I guess, then? And she says, yeah. And so they continue just walking around, and he, after a little bit, he notices that Lucifer isn't around, and so he asks, oh, where's Lucifer? And she says that, oh, he's just watching Earth as usual. And he says, okay, well, wait, what's on that wall? And she turns around, and Axel bolts for the exit, runs as fast as he can. Keep in mind, he's very, very fast. He's not just strong, he's fast. And, well, by the time she turns around, he's already far ahead. And so she runs after him because it looks like he's going for the exit. He is. And so he's running to the exit, and now Lucifer's wife is chasing him. And she catches up to him somehow, despite the fact that Axel is very, very fast. And she doesn't want to hurt him. And so she just kind of tries to trip him and stop him and just kind of hold him in place. But he just keeps breaking free from her every time. And eventually, Lucifer walks up from the hole in the wall and sees that he has escaped from his box, and realizing that, oh no, I need to stop him because that is his job. And so, seemingly by just waving his hands, the once was floor that was just sand now morphs into giant pits of lava here and there, giant canyons and cavernous, and there's a bunch of jetting rocks everywhere, and oh my goodness, it's absolute chaos everywhere. And because of the fact that in the blink of an eye it went from running on sand to now dodging lava pits and dodging giant rock spikes, both of them, both Lucifer's wife as well as Axel, stumble a bit. And, well, what happens is something a bit sad, more sad, I guess, in the way of how you look at it. But because of their stumble, Axel accidentally, in quotation marks, I guess, pushes Lucifer's wife into one of the giant caverns full of lava. And, well, Lucifer himself was, after he changed the landscape, was also running after Axel because, well, it's his job to stop him and get him back in the box. However, he also has now witnessed the fact that, well, this man that he doesn't really know anything about, only knows his name, and his only reason for existing is just to keep that guy in the box. And that guy just killed his wife. The only person he actually knew, the only person he actually cared about, just died in front of him to the guy who he was meant to keep in the box. Lucifer had failed. He couldn't keep Axel in the box. And the fact that he couldn't keep Axel in the box has led to his wife dying. And well, Lucifer is very unhappy with this. And he goes into a blind rage, and he flies at Axel, faster than Axel could even go. And well, in defense, seemingly, and in defense, technically, Axel punches Lucifer right in the face. And well, Lucifer is seemingly knocked out. And well, you may be wondering, well, how was Lucifer knocked out? Well, keep in mind, Axel is strong. And not just strong, seemingly unstoppable. This is the same creature, the same being, that can destroy moons just by flying into them. He can jump from planet to planet. He can lift mountains with one hand and throw them to the other side of the earth. He can do all of these things. And, well, Lucifer wasn't exactly designed to take a punch, let alone one of that strength. And so Lucifer pretty much flies back a couple feet and seemingly is knocked out. He's got one eye open. And so Axel, realizing, well, this is my chance, and he darts for the exit. Because of Lucifer being knocked out, the landscape does turn back into its regular sand, and he gets closer and closer to the exit. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, there's someone who's another humanoid-looking creature that's standing pretty decent ways away, but still close enough to notice and identify it. Seems to be just a regular looking guy, except he's missing his arms, and he's in seemingly armor, and it's heavily damaged. And, well, the guy who's missing his arms starts running towards Axel. And, that is where I will end today. So, there is more, don't worry. And this is not anywhere near the end. Hope you enjoyed. Eat water, drink food, I don't know. Hope you liked it. Have a good rest of your day. And bye.